The marketplace of Drelva 9 was louder than thunder. Hundreds of alien voices echoed between the tall metal towers. Bright lights flashed over stalls filled with strange food, glowing crystals, and weapons sharp enough to cut steel. In the middle of it all stood a small alien girl. She was tiny, half the height of the others. Her body was slim, fragile, and her eyes too big for her face. She carried a basket of old fruit, trying to sell them. But no one wanted to buy. Instead, the crowd only laughed. "Look at her arms." One alien shouted, slamming his thick fist against his chest. "She cannot even lift a stone." "Her kind should not be here," another said, spitting near her feet. "Too small, too weak, a waste of space." The laughter spread. Deep, rumbling voices, sharp, cruel words. The little alien lowered her head. She wanted to disappear, but she didn't. Her fists tightened around the basket. She would not cry, not in front of them. Not again. For years this was her life, mocked for her size. Rejected by her own people. She was told she had no worth. She believed it at times, but tonight something inside her burned. A shadow moved. Through the crowd, taller than the others, broad shoulders. A stranger in a plain jacket. His eyes were sharp, watching her. He was human. Humans were rare here. Most aliens disliked them, too unpredictable, too emotional. But this human did not laugh. He did not mock. He simply stood still, his gaze fixed on the small alien girl, as if he saw something the others did. Not. The girl noticed him. Her stomach turned cold. Was he here to laugh too? To make a joke of her size? She prepared herself for more pain. The crowd's laughter grew. One alien, a heavy brute with tusks, pushed her basket. Fruit spilled across the ground, rolling between boots. The little alien fell to her knees, trying to gather them quickly before someone stopped them. "Pathetic," the brute growled, bending close. His hot breath smelled of rotten meat. "You are smaller than a child. You should not even exist." The crowd cheered his words, cruel smiles. Loud roars. But before the brute could shove her again, a hand stopped him. A human hand. The crowd fell silent for a moment, shocked. The human stood between the brute and the girl. His voice was calm, but strong. "That's enough," he said. The brute blinked, surprised. "You, human, this is none of your business." The human's eyes narrowed. "It is now." Gasps spread through the crowd. Nobody ever defended her. Nobody ever spoke for her. The girl froze, clutching her basket. Her heart beat so fast it hurt. The brute laughed, deep and cruel. "You protect this runt? Why? She is nothing." Less than nothing. The human didn't answer with words. Instead, he bent down and picked up one of the fallen fruits. He brushed the dust off it and placed it gently back into her basket. His hand was steady. His movements slow, careful, almost respectful. The crowd whispered. Some laughed again, but others watched in silence. This was strange. Humans were often reckless, but this one was calm. The girl's throat felt tight. No one had ever done that for her before. No one cared if her fruit was ruined, if her basket was broken, if her pride was crushed. Yet this human, this stranger, cared enough to pick up even a single fruit. Why? She whispered before she could stop herself. Human looked at her then. His eyes were not mocking. They were warm, steady, filled with something she could not understand. "Because no one deserves to be treated like this," he said simply. The words hit her harder than any insult ever had. She looked down quickly, afraid her tears would show. Brute snarled. "You think you can stand against us, human?" For her. The human straightened, facing the brute without fear. Yes. The crowd shifted. Some aliens whispered, others shouted, and the laughter grew uncertain. This was not normal. A human defending the weakest of them? Impossible. The girl's heart raced. She wanted to tell him to stop, to leave before he got hurt, but at the same time, she wanted him to stay. She she needed someone to believe she was more than nothing. The brute leaned closer, his tusks gleaming. "You'll regret this, human. You'll regret standing with the runt." The human's hand brushed against the girl's shoulder. Not forceful, not commanding, just a gentle touch. Enough to steady her. "Come," he whispered to her. "Stand." Her legs shook, but she stood. For the first time in years, she did not stand alone. The marketplace went silent again. The laughter faded, replaced by whispers, stares, and anger. Everyone was watching. The human looked at the brute and said calmly, "If you want to laugh, laugh at me, but leave her alone." The girl's eyes widened. No one had ever said those words for her. No one had ever stepped into the fire when she was burning. The brute growled low, fists clenching. The crowd held its breath. The girl clutched her basket, her chest rising and falling fast. She didn't know who this human was. She didn't know why he cared. But in that moment, she felt something she had never felt before. Hope. And hope was dangerous. The brute raised his hand to strike. The crowd leaned forward. The girl whispered, "Please, don't." But the human did not move away. His eyes stayed locked on the brute, his stance unshaken. The laughter was gone now. Only silence, only suspense. Only the weight of what was about to happen. The marketplace held its breath. Asterisk. The crowd did not move. The brute's heavy arm was raised, ready to strike. Every alien in the marketplace leaned forward, waiting to see blood. But the human did not flinch. He stood tall, his eyes locked on the brute's face, his jaw tight. With quiet strength. Then, something unexpected happened. The brute hesitated. His fist shook in the air, his tusks bared in anger, but something about the human's gaze stopped him. It wasn't fear, it wasn't weakness, it was defiance. Calm and unshakable, the silence stretched until finally the brute lowered his arm, snarling. "Not worth it," he spat. "Waste your time on the runt, she'd drag you down." He turned and pushed his way through the crowd. Laughter followed him, but weaker now, less certain. The human stayed still until the brute was gone. Only then did he turn back to the little alien girl. She was trembling, clutching her basket tight to her chest, afraid to breathe. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was softer now. She shook her head quickly, not trusting her voice. Her big eyes darted to the ground, then to the fruit scattered across the dirt. Without another word, the human crouched down. He began picking up the fruit one by one. His hands brushed the dust off each piece before placing it back in the basket. Slowly, carefully, as if the fruit were precious, the girl's throat tightened. No one had ever done that for her. Not her own kind, not even her family. "You don't have to," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know," he said simply. "But I want to." She stared at him. The words felt strange, like they didn't belong in her world. Want to? People never wanted to help her. They only wanted to mock, to push, to crush. The human finished gathering the fruit. He stood and handed her the basket. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes. They were different, steady, warm, carrying a weight she couldn't explain. "Why?" she asked again. The question slipped out before she could stop it. He tilted his head, studying her. "Because everyone deserves a chance." Her chest tightened. A chance? She wanted to laugh at the word, but it came out as a broken sound, half sob, half breath. She hugged the basket tighter. The human's lips curved slightly, not in mockery, but in something almost like reassurance. "What's your name?" he asked. She blinked. No one asked her name. Not anymore. To most, she was just the runt or the useless one. Her name felt heavy on her tongue, dusty from lack of use. "Lyra," she whispered. He nodded. "Lyra, I'm Daniel." The name sounded strange, heavy with human tone, but she held it in her memory like a secret gift. Before she could say more, voices rose around them. Whispers, low and sharp. Aliens in the crowd were muttering, pointing. Daniel noticed too. His body shifted, his stance protective again. "They don't like this," Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. "They won't let it go." Daniel's eyes swept the crowd. "Let them talk." But Lyra shook her head quickly, panic rising in her chest. "You don't understand. They will come after you. After me. You should leave. Forget this. Forget me." Her words tumbled fast, desperate. She wanted to warn him, to save him. Nobody should get hurt for her, but Daniel only looked at her calmly. "I don't walk away from what's right." The words burned into her chest. She didn't know if she hated them or loved them. Suddenly, 3 aliens from the crowd stepped forward. Not the brute, but others broad-shouldered, their eyes glowing faintly in the neon lights. They were not laughing. Their faces were serious, angry. "You," one of them growled, pointing at Daniel. "You dishonor us by protecting the runt." "Step aside, human," another barked. "She has no place here. She never will." The crowd stirred again, the air thick with hostility. Lyra's heart pounded. She wanted to scream at Daniel to run. But he only stood taller, his hands loose at his sides. "Ready? Then maybe," Daniel said, his voice calm but sharp as steel. "You're the ones who don't belong." The words struck the crowd like a shockwave. Gasps, growls, hisses. The alien surged forward. Lyra grabbed Daniel's sleeve, pulling desperately. "No, you'll be killed." He glanced at her, his expression softer for a moment. "Not if we move. Come on." Before she could question, he pulled her through a narrow gap between 2 stalls. Lyra stumbled after him, clutching her basket. Tight as shouts erupted behind them, the chase began. They darted through the alleys of the marketplace. Neon lights flashed, shadows shifted. Footsteps thundered behind them. Daniel's grip on her arm was firm, but not painful, guiding her through the chaos with surprising speed. Lyra's lungs burned. Her legs were short, her body weak. She had never run this fast in her life. But somehow, with his hand pulling her forward, she kept moving. "They'll catch us." She gasped. "Not if you trust me," Daniel said. The words made her stumble. Trust? She barely knew him. But the way he said it steady, sure, made her believe, even if only for a heartbeat. They turned down another alley, darker, quieter. For a moment, the shouts grew distant. Daniel slowed, letting her catch her breath. Lyra bent over, clutching her chest, her small frame shaking. Why are you doing this?" Daniel looked down at her. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. With something deeper. "Because you're worth it," he said. Her head snapped up. "Worth it." The words slammed into her harder than any insult ever had. Worth it. She didn't even know what that meant for her. Before she could respond, voices rose again. The pursuers were close. Daniel's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Lyra swallowed hard, gripping her basket like it was her only shield. Her heart pounded with fear, but beneath it, something new stirred. Not just fear. Not just shame. Something dangerous. Hope. The footsteps grew louder. The shadows closed in. And in that dark alley, Lyra realized this was only the beginning. The alley was dark, but not silent. Their footsteps echoed on the wet metal ground, and every sound seemed louder than it should be. Lyra's chest still heaved, her breath fast, her small hands gripping the basket as if it were her last defense. Daniel walked a step ahead, scanning every shadow, every corner. For a moment, there was peace. No angry shouts. No heavy footsteps chasing. Only the hum of neon signs flickering above them. But peace never lasted long in Drelvanine. "They'll keep coming," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. "They won't stop until you leave me behind." Daniel stopped walking and turned toward her. His eyes, even in the dim light, carried that same steady fire. "I'm not leaving you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but the words felt impossible. "You don't understand," she said, shaking her head. "I'm not just small. I'm not just weak. There's a reason they hate me." Daniel stepped closer. "Then tell me." Lyra's hands shook around the basket. She looked down at the fruit, but her vision blurred. No one had ever asked her to explain. No one wanted to hear. They only wanted her silence, but something in Daniel's voice. It pushed her to speak. "I was born different," she whispered. "Not only in size, my people. They said I carried something dangerous. A curse. A mark that should never exist." Daniel frowned, listening carefully. Her voice broke as she continued. "When I was young, things happened around me. Lights flickering, machines breaking, people getting hurt. They said it was me. They said my blood was wrong. That's why they mocked me. That's why they drove me out." The words spilled like poison from her chest, words she had buried for years. Daniel didn't laugh. He didn't mock. He only stood still, silent, his gaze locked on her trembling frame. "You believe them?" he asked softly. Her eyes widened. "What? You believe you're cursed?" His tone wasn't cruel. It was calm, like he wanted her to hear herself. Lyra froze. No one had ever asked her that. Not even she had dared ask it. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Daniel bent slightly, so his eyes met hers directly. What if it's not a curse? What if it's something else? Her heart pounded. She wanted to laugh, to push the idea away, but deep inside, she knew. She remembered nights when strange energy hummed under her skin, when sparks danced from her fingertips in secret. Not a curse, not entirely. Something different. "I don't know what I am," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "But I know what they see, and they will never stop hating me." Daniel straightened. His jaw tightened, and for the first time since she met him, anger flickered in his eyes, not at her, but at them. "Then let them hate," he said firmly. "It doesn't change who you are." Her breath caught. The words slammed into her chest harder than any stone ever thrown at her. Who she was, not what they said. Not what they mocked. For the first time, she felt a small spark inside her that wasn't fear. It was something dangerous. Something she didn't dare name. But their fragile moment was broken. The sound of heavy boots echoed again. Shadows moved at the end of the alley. The pursuers had found them. Daniel's body shifted instantly, protective, placing himself between Lyra and the danger. "Stay behind me," he said. 3 aliens appeared, their eyes glowing faintly. Not the brute from before. These were different. Faster, trained, hunters, one of them sneered. "The human thinks he can protect the cursed one." Another raised a weapon, a long blade that hummed with energy. She should never have been born. "Hand her over, human, and you might live." Lyra's blood turned to ice. Her knees shook. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Daniel didn't step aside. "If she's cursed, then I'll share her curse," he said. His voice carried like iron in the alley. The aliens snarled and advanced. Lyra's breath came in sharp bursts. Fear crushed her chest. She couldn't let Daniel die for her. Not after he'd shown her kindness no one else ever had. Her hands burned suddenly. The basket slipped from her grip, fruit scattering again across the ground. Her palms glowed faintly. Blue sparks flickering in the darkness. Her heart froze. No, not now, not in front of him. But Daniel had already seen. His eyes widened, not in fear, not in disgust, but in recognition. "You can fight," he said quietly. "Can't you?" Lyra shook her head violently. "No, I don't want to hurt anyone." The hunters moved closer, weapons ready. Daniel's voice dropped low, urgent. "Then don't do it for them. Do it for yourself. For us." Her breath hitched. For us. The sparks grew stronger, dancing across her fingers. The hunters stopped for a moment, uncertain. Lyra stared at Daniel, her hands shaking, her heart racing. She didn't know if she was strong enough. She didn't know if she could control it. But for the first time, someone believed she could. Her lips trembled. "If I do this, I can't go back." Daniel's voice was steady, unshaken. "Then, don't look back." The hunters lunged forward, and Lyra, the tiny alien who had been mocked all her life, raised her glowing hands. The air cracked with energy. Asterisk. The air exploded with light. Blue sparks shot from Lyra's hands, crashing into the hunters like lightning. The alley shook as energy slammed against metal walls. One alien was thrown backward, his weapon flying from his grip. Another stumbled, smoke rising from his armor. For a heartbeat, silence filled the air. Lyra's chest heaved, her small frame trembling. She stared at her glowing fingers in shock. She had never released so much power before, not like this. The energy hummed through her veins, wild and alive. The hunters weren't gone, though. One still stood, his eyes blazing with rage. "Cursed witch," he spat. "You'll burn for this." He raised his blade and charged. Before Lyra could scream, Daniel moved. His body was quick, sharp, trained. He caught the attacker's arm and twisted hard, slamming the alien into the wall. The blade clattered to the ground. Daniel's punch followed, fast and brutal, knocking the hunter down. But the noise had already spread. From every corner of the marketplace, voices rose, shouts, orders. The alarm was spreading. "They know where we are," Daniel said, his voice calm but urgent. He grabbed Lyra's hand. "We need to move, now." Her legs barely responded, but his grip pulled her forward. She stumbled, clutching his arm as they darted deeper into the maze of alleys behind them. More footsteps echoed. The hunters were regrouping. Others were coming. The chase had begun. They ran through twisting passages, lit only by broken neon signs. The ground was slick, trash scattered everywhere. Lyra's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. Her small frame wasn't built for running. Every step was agony, her lungs burning, her vision blurring. I can't," she gasped, stumbling. "You can," Daniel said, pulling her up without slowing. His voice was firm, steady. "Stay with me." The words gave her strength she didn't know she had. She pushed her legs forward, forcing herself to keep pace. Behind them, the sound of boots grew louder. Shadows flickered closer. The hunters were faster. Daniel pulled Lyra into a side passage, narrow and half-collapsed. They slipped through broken pipes and hanging wires, but the hunters followed, their growls echoing in the dark. "They won't stop," Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. "Then neither will we," Daniel said. His grip on her hand tightened. They burst into a wider street filled with stalls. The marketplace stretched ahead, crowded, noisy, alive with neon. But now dozens of eyes turned toward them. Some recognized Lyra, some pointed. Some shouted, "There!" A voice roared, "The cursed one, with the human!" The crowd shifted. Some stepped back in fear. Others moved to block their path. Daniel scanned the chaos. He spotted a narrow bridge ahead, connecting two towers. It was risky, high above the ground, but it was their only way out. "Up there," he said, pointing. Lyra's stomach dropped. "That's too high." "I'll fall." "You won't," Daniel said firmly. "Not while I'm here." They sprinted toward the stairs. The crowd shouted behind them, the hunters closing in. Lyra's legs screamed in pain, but Daniel's hand pulled her forward, every step steady, every movement sure. They reached the stairs. Metal groaned under their weight as they climbed. Each step felt heavier than the last. The hunters weren't far. Lyra could hear their blades hum, their footsteps thunder. "Faster!" Daniel urged. She forced herself higher, her small body trembling. Her vision blurred with tears, but she didn't stop. She couldn't dot at the top. The bridge stretched across the street, narrow, shaking in the wind. Below, the marketplace glowed like a sea of neon. Daniel stepped onto the bridge first, pulling Lyra with him. The metal creaked dangerously. Halfway across, shouts rose again. The hunters were already climbing the stairs. "They'll catch us," Lyra cried. Daniel glanced back, his jaw tight. "Not if you trust me." The same words he had spoken before. "Trust me." Her heart pounded. She nodded, forcing herself to keep going. The bridge swayed, every step a fight against gravity. Suddenly, one of the hunters leapt onto the bridge behind them. The metal shook violently under his weight. Lyra screamed, almost losing her balance. Daniel spun, his body between her and the attacker. The hunter charged, blade raised. Daniel caught the strike with his bare hands, the blade cutting into his palm. He gritted his teeth but didn't let go. "Go!" he shouted to Lyra. "Run!" Her heart froze. She couldn't leave him. She wouldn't. The sparks flickered at her fingertips again. Energy hummed in her veins. She turned toward the hunter, raising her hands. Blue lightning exploded from her palms, striking the hunter's chest. He screamed, thrown off the bridge into the neon abyss below. The bridge rattled, shaking violently, but held. Daniel exhaled sharply, his injured hand bleeding. He looked at her with something between shock and pride. "You saved us." Lyra's lips trembled. I didn't mean to." "You did," Daniel said firmly. "And you'll do it again. Because you're stronger than you think." Her chest tightened. Stronger. The word felt impossible, but real when he said it. The hunters' voices rose again from below. More were coming. Dozens now. Daniel gripped her hand again. "This isn't over. They'll keep chasing us." Lyra swallowed hard. She knew he was right. This wasn't just a chase, it was a hunt. And she was the prey. But for the first time, she wasn't alone, and that changed everything. The night air was sharp and cold as Daniel and Lyra stumbled off the swaying bridge. Neon light flickered on their faces, casting long shadows on the steel walls. Behind them, the hunters roared, their voices echoing up through the marketplace. "Like a storm." "They're close," Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel glanced at her trembling hands, still glowing faintly with blue sparks. His own palm bled from the cut he had taken on the bridge, but his expression stayed calm. "Then we stop running," he said. Lyra froze. "What?" Daniel turned, scanning the narrow rooftop they had reached. Rusted pipes, broken crates, and a wide stretch of empty steel lay before them. Behind, only one narrow path led upward, the only way the hunters could come. "They'll corner us anyway," Daniel explained, his voice firm. "Better we choose where to stand." Lyra's chest tightened. She had never stood before. Never fought. Always she was the one pushed down. Mocked, left behind. She shook her head, her voice cracking. "I can't. I'll only make it worse." Daniel crouched slightly, his hand on her shoulder. His touch was steady, grounding. "You already saved me once." "You think that was an accident?" "It wasn't. You're stronger than they'll ever admit." Her throat burned. She wanted to deny it, but the memory of the hunter falling from the bridge flashed in her mind. Her power had saved them. The shouts grew louder. Heavy footsteps slammed against the steel, climbing closer. Daniel stood, his jaw tight. "Stay behind me when they come. I'll hold the front. You only strike when you're ready." Her hands trembled, but she nodded. The first hunter appeared. At the edge of the rooftop, his blade glowing in the neon light. Two more climbed after him, snarling. Their eyes locked on Lyra with hatred, as if Daniel didn't even exist. "There she is," one growled. "The cursed runt. End her." Daniel stepped forward, his stance wide, fists clenched. "You'll have to get through me first." The hunters laughed, deep and cruel. "One human against us?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Not one, two." He glanced back at Lyra. She felt her stomach twist, her knees shake. But when she met his gaze, something inside her steadied. Not one, two. The hunters lunged. Daniel moved first. His fist cracked against the jaw of the lead attacker, spinning him sideways. The second swung a blade, but Daniel caught his wrist, twisting until the alien screamed. With a sharp kick, he sent him sprawling. The third pushed past Daniel, charging straight at Lyra. Her breath froze. Her body wanted to collapse, to hide, but sparks burst across her palms. Blue light filled the rooftop. The hunter swung his blade down and her power exploded outward. A wave of energy knocked him backward, his weapon flying into the darkness. He landed hard, smoke rising from his armor. Lyra staggered, almost falling, but Daniel caught her arm. "Good," he said quickly. "Again." The words burned into her chest like fire. More hunters climbed up. 5, 6, maybe more. Their footsteps shook the steel, their weapons glowing brighter. Daniel tightened his fists, blood dripping from his palm. His breath was heavy now, but his eyes stayed sharp. He looked at Lyra again. "We hold together, no fear." She nodded, though her heart screamed in terror. Her sparks flickered brighter, lighting the rooftop in a glow the hunters could not ignore. The next wave attacked. Daniel fought like a storm blocking strikes, landing sharp blows, his body moving with precision. But they were too many. One hunter's blade cut across his arm, another slammed a fist into his chest, driving him back. "Daniel!" Lyra cried out. She raised her hands without thinking. Lightning burst across the rooftop, striking 2 hunters at once. They screamed, collapsing in sparks of smoke. The others paused, shocked by her power. For the first time, fear flickered in their eyes. "She's dangerous," one snarled. "She must die now." Daniel spat blood, his stance unshaken. "Not while I'm here." He pushed forward, striking again, driving them back. Lyra followed his lead, her power growing stronger. With every strike, the rooftop shook with light and fury. Together, they stood. Together, they fought. When the last hunter fell to the steel, smoke curling from his armor, silence filled the air. Lyra collapsed to her knees, her chest heaving. Her hands still glowed faintly, but weaker now, drained. She looked at the bodies around her in horror. I didn't mean to." Daniel knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. His touch was warm despite the blood on his skin. "You saved us, don't ever doubt that." Her lips trembled. "But I'm not a warrior." He looked at her with steady eyes. "No, you're more than that. You're someone worth fighting for." Her breath caught. No one had ever said those words to her. No one had ever looked at her the way he did now, like she wasn't a mistake, but something rare. Something important. Before she could speak, a sound rose in the distance. Sirens. Lights flashing in the dark. More forces were coming. Daniel stood slowly, pulling her up with him. This was only the first wave. They won't stop. Lyra swallowed hard, fear twisting in her stomach. "Then what do we do?" Daniel's voice was steady, strong. "We keep standing, together." And in that moment, for the first time in her life, Lyra believed it was possible. The rooftop was quiet now, except for the hum of broken neon signs and the hiss of smoke rising from fallen hunters. The fight had ended, but the danger hadn't. Sirens still echoed from the city below. More would come. Daniel stood, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His jacket was torn, his arm bleeding, his knuckles raw. But his eyes never left Lyra. She knelt on the steel floor, trembling. Her small hands still glowed faintly, sparks flickering in the darkness. She stared at them like they belonged to someone else. I don't want this," she whispered. Her voice broke. "This power, it hurts people. It makes me a monster." Daniel stepped closer, his footsteps slow, steady. "No, it makes you alive." Her head snapped up, her big eyes wide. Alive? I'm cursed. They were right all along. Daniel crouched in front of her. His face was bruised, blood streaked across his jaw, but his voice was calm, firm. Lyra, listen to me. What I saw back there, it wasn't a curse. It was you protecting us, protecting yourself. Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but her whole life had been nothing but proof of the opposite. But I don't control it. It controls me. Daniel reached out slowly. He didn't force her. He only placed his hand lightly over hers. The sparks buzzed against his skin, but he didn't pull away. You can control it, he said softly. Not because they told you, not because I tell you, but because you believe it. Her chest ached. The warmth of his hand against hers was stronger than the sparks, stronger than her fear. For a moment, the world faded, the hunters, the laughter, the sirens. Only his hand over hers, steady and real. Why? She whispered, her voice trembling. Why risk everything for me? I'm nothing. Daniel's eyes locked on hers. His voice dropped low, each word cutting deep. You're not nothing. You're everything they'll never understand. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The words sank into her heart like fire. The sirens grew louder. Red lights flashed on the buildings around them. Daniel stood, pulling her gently to her feet. She swayed, her small body weak from the energy she had burned. He steadied her, one hand on her shoulder, the other gripping his side. We need shelter, he said. Somewhere they won't find us. Lyra hesitated, then pointed toward the old sector of the city, where broken towers leaned like dying. Giants, there, no one goes there anymore, Daniel nodded. Without another word, he led her across the rooftops, moving fast, silent, careful. She followed, clutching her basket tight, though only a few bruised fruits remained. The old sector was darker, quieter. The towers were rusted, windows shattered, streets empty. They slipped inside a hollow building, dust filling the air. Inside, silence returned. For the first time in hours, no footsteps chased, no voices shouted. Daniel leaned against a wall, sliding down slowly. His breath was heavy, his arm bleeding worse now. Lyra rushed to him, panic flashing in her eyes. You're hurt, she cried. He gave a faint smile. Nothing I can't handle. But she saw the blood soaking his sleeve. Her hands shook as she tore a piece of cloth from her tunic and pressed it against the wound. Daniel flinched but didn't push her away. He let her work, her small fingers clumsy but gentle. You shouldn't have done this for me, she whispered. He tilted his head, watching her carefully. And yet, I would again. Her hands froze. She lifted her eyes to his. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It carried something new, something she had never felt before. Warmth. Her chest tightened. No one has ever stood for me. No one has ever cared if I lived or died. Daniel's voice was soft, but steady. Then let me be the first. Her breath hitched. She wanted to cry, to scream, to run, but instead, she stayed. Her hand lingered on his arm, her eyes locked on his. For the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt seen. Outside, sirens faded into the distance. For now, they were safe. But they both knew it wouldn't last. Lyra curled closer, her shoulder brushing his. The sparks in her palms had dimmed, but inside her chest, something brighter had lit. Something terrifying. Hope. And as Daniel leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment's rest, Lyra whispered so softly. Even she wasn't sure he heard. My heart was never mine. It always waited, for you. The broken tower was silent. Dust drifted through the air like ash, and the sound of distant sirens had finally faded. For the first time that night, there was no chase, no mocking laughter, no hunters at their backs. But silence was dangerous too. Lyra sat against the cold wall, Her knees pulled close, her small hands trembling. The sparks had left her skin, but their memory still buzzed through her veins. She had used her power, really used it, and she could never take it back. "They'll never stop hunting me now," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I showed them what I am. I gave them proof." Daniel sat across from her, his back against a rusted pillar. His arm was bandaged clumsily, his face bruised, but his eyes were steady, fixed on her. "You gave them proof of their fear," he said calmly. "Not your curse, their weakness." Her throat tightened. "You don't understand. They'll call me a monster. They'll spread my name like poison. Everywhere I go, I'll be hated." Daniel leaned forward, his voice low, firm. "Then let them hate. I don't care. You're not their monster. You're my friend." Her breath caught. Friend. The word felt heavier than gold. But Daniel wasn't finished. "And more than that, you're someone worth my fight. Worth my heart." The words slammed into her chest. She stared at him, her big eyes wide, trembling with something she had no name for. "Why?" she whispered. "I'm small, broken." "Wrong." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, Lyra, you're small, yes. But inside you is something bigger than all of them combined. Courage, kindness, a heart no one else sees. I see it, and I won't let you hide it anymore." Her lips trembled. She wanted to deny it, but her tears betrayed her. For years, she had lived as a shadow, mocked, rejected, cursed. And here was a human, someone not even of her kind, saying she was more, saying she was enough. Her tears spilled, hot against her cheeks. She pressed her hands to her face, whispering, "Why did it have to be you, a human?" Daniel smiled faintly, tired but true. "Maybe because no alien had the heart to see you. But I did." The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full of everything unsaid, everything felt. Slowly, Lyra lowered her hands. She reached toward him, hesitant, fragile. Daniel didn't move until her small fingers brushed against his. Then he closed his hand gently around hers, steady and warm. Her chest burned. For once, not from shame, not from fear. From something new. Hope. Outside, the city stirred. Lights flickered across towers, voices rose in the distance. The hunters hadn't given up. They would come again, stronger. Daniel heard them too, but he didn't let go of her hand. "They'll come for us," he said. "Tomorrow, the day after, maybe forever." Lyra's heart pounded. "Then we'll never be safe." Daniel leaned closer, his voice quiet but unshakable. "Not safe, but together." Her breath hitched. Together. The word lit something inside her, stronger than sparks, stronger than fear. She nodded slowly. Then together. They stood in the ruins of the tower, side by side. The neon glow of the city painted them in fractured light. They were hunted, hated, mocked. But for the first time, Lyra didn't feel small. She felt chosen. Daniel squeezed her hand gently, his eyes still locked on the streets below. "Let them laugh," he said, his voice calm as steel. "They'll never understand what we have." Lyra's tears fell, but she smiled through them. Not the weak smile of someone hiding pain, but the smile of someone finally seeing. And in that moment, under the broken lights of a cruel city, something began. Not an ending, a new beginning.